So, how long have you been planning to sort out your talk? How long have you been waiting to really perfect the ideas or your offer, or really decide exactly who that audience is, or find that perfect audience, or find that perfect conference? How long have you been waiting to really perfect your talk? Because I see this everywhere. I see brilliant women who have fantastic offers that genuinely make a difference to the world, getting out there and talking, but somehow they're also holding back. They're also waiting for that moment when they can really perfect it and they can really step onto that big stage and they can really become that incredible speaker. So really, truthfully, hand on your heart, how long have you been waiting to perfect that speech? Because the reality is, visibility is everywhere. I'm visible right now. I'm doing a live. You can do a live. You can be out there. You can be on podcasts. You can speak at networking events. You can speak on conference stages. You can speak in webinars. There's so many places for you to be visible, for you to talk to your audience, explain to your audience what you do and how you help them and why it might actually be really beneficial for you two to work together. But I go to a lot of conferences all over the world. I sit and I watch many, many speakers week in and week out. And I have to say, really truthfully, really honestly, there's very few speakers I see out there who aren't just talking, but have taken a genuinely strategic approach to the things that they're talking about. That is honestly really, really rare. And the other thing that I see, all that time that you're waiting, all that time that you're waiting to perfect your talk, all that time you're waiting to find that perfect stage, that perfect audience, that perfect way of articulating your product or your service, actually what's happening is you're practicing the wrong stuff. So you're practicing the things that are very quietly, very subtly undermining your credibility. Very subtly, very quietly undermining your authority, and very quietly, very subtly not really generating the growth in your business that you ought to be seeing because of the transformations that you're offering your clients, because of the power of what you do. So if you're practicing the wrong thing, it's literally getting ingrained. And so when you do find that perfect stage, when you do really articulate perfectly what you do and how you do it and how you help people, you've actually been practicing a whole bunch of the wrong things and it still isn't going to land. And you're going to walk off that stage or walk away from that live or walk away from that conversation and just think, why? I don't understand why it didn't land. And as I said, every time we're doing this, every single time, there's a commercial impact. You find you will walk away from conversations, from presentations, from networking events, and you will get really lovely applause. And people will be, wow, that's a really interesting transformation that she's getting or he's getting for their audiences. But they won't necessarily go, right, we need to have a conversation. Yes, this is something that I've been meaning to sort out in my business for a really, really long time. You won't necessarily get those strategic partnerships, those people that could refer incredible clients to you and you could refer clients to them. You won't necessarily get asked to come back and you won't necessarily get that growth in your business that you want to see. And as I said, that simply compounds over time. And just think about the amount of time that you spend pulling a deck together, deciding what you're going to talk about, preparing that talk, perfecting the deck, maybe having a bit of a practice, all that kind of stuff. Just think about how long that takes. That makes your visibility actually very expensive because your time is incredibly valuable. Now, the other thing that I just want to draw your attention to is I genuinely believe that conversations are important. So we generate relationships with people, particularly if you're using something like LinkedIn or Instagram or any of the social platforms. The only way these days that you are going to find great clients is by having conversations and by really getting to know people and chatting to them. Nobody's going to respond to a pitch slap. Nobody's going to respond to that really kind of aggressive cold calling type stuff. It just doesn't work. So we have to spend time having conversations. but that does take up time. It takes up a huge amount of time. So that lead generation is costly in terms of your time. Now, when you're standing in front of an audience, maybe that's 50 people, maybe it's 100 people, maybe it's 300 or 3,000, I don't know. But you have an opportunity, essentially, to have a meaningful one-to-one conversation with a bunch of people at one time. If you've got your talk right, if you've got the strategy right, if you have prepared it in such a way that it is going to land with the majority of the audience, those people in the audience who are ready to move on to the next stage, who are ready to get the transformation that you're offering, who are ready to take the next step, are going to be much more likely to do it. And you've done that in 20 minutes or half an hour or 45 minutes or however long you've been given to talk. I have a client who's done incredible results, and she had 10 minutes. So the power of having what feels like a one-to-one conversation with one-to-many people is incredibly valuable. It's valuable in terms of your revenue. It's valuable in terms of strategic partnerships. It's valuable in terms of your bottom line. It's valuable in terms of creating super fans out there, people who will never buy from you, but who will go, oh, you need that? Go speak to her. She's amazing. I saw her speak at this conference and she was brilliant. If you want that thing, she's the person to go to. So it makes you memorable, it makes you sticky, it makes you referable. So when you've got that powerful talk, that is going to save you time and it's going to generate revenue and growth in your business. So that's why we spent years, let's be honest here, building out this particular program. It's called the Authority Talk, and it's got 5 distinct phases. And the reason it has 5 distinct phases is because you have to have them all. When I speak to people and all the research that I've done in watching speakers prepare for huge events, small events, all kinds of events, live events, events in front of a camera, all kinds of stuff, what I've realised over the years is people do 2 of the 5 things that are actually necessary to build a strategic talk. And it's usually half of one, a whole of another, and a half of another one. So it doesn't really build the talk. It doesn't really have the strategy behind it to have the impact that we really, really want it to have. So that's why we built the Authority Talk. And it's got 5 really, really distinct phases. And those 5 phases mean you're preparing a talk that is going to be meaningful for your audience. You are practicing the right things. It's strategically aligned to what you're trying to achieve, and it's going to generate you revenue. Whether that's immediate revenue in the room or revenue that comes later, you're going to get strategic partnership conversations going, and you are going to get asked to come back because it's going to be powerful and impactful for the audience. So I'm going to talk you through the 5 stages, the roadmap that we use with every single client that we work with to create their authority talk. Now, their authority talk is always different. We've never created one that's the same, but the roadmap, the philosophy, the thinking behind it allows us to be flexible with what we create, but will always have good outcomes and good impact for our clients. So when we see clients who don't go through all 5 stages, perhaps they've done bits for themselves and they come in and they've only done certain bits, that's when we see the impact is definitely lessened. So what are the 5 stages? This is the first one, and the one that it's literally critical. If you don't do this, you might as well not bother doing the rest of it, because the impact that you're going to create is going to be pretty low. So I'm going to ask you a question. When you are asked to go and do a talk, what's the very first thing that you do? What do you do? I'm going to guess that you get your laptop out or you get a piece of paper and you think, okay, this is the title of the event, or this is what I've been asked to speak about. What does this audience need to know? So you might think, what are the 3 biggest mistakes people make? Or what are the myths that people have? Or why doesn't this work? Da, 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 da. So you'll think about what it is you want to tell the audience from your experience, right? You are a very experienced individual. You've worked with this kind of industry for a really long time. You get it, right? You've seen it 1,000 times over. So you can very easily pick out the things that are stopping or keeping your audience stuck. And so you think, okay, this is what they need to know. And you start there. And that's is a big mistake. It's mistake number one. So which is why we change the way that we do things, and we sit with our clients, and first of all, we understand the audience. So that's the first job. Understand who it is you are about to speak to. Now, what I mean by this is not, okay, they are people who've been in business for 5 years, they're coaches, consultants, they offer transformations for their clients, they're generally heart-centered. I don't mean any of that sort of stuff. That stuff is important and we do want to consider it, but it isn't really what we want to know. What we need to know before we can begin to plan out anything at all is actually, who are these people, these humans, these individuals, and how are they thinking? So we take our clients through a process of really understanding, psychologically understanding who they are talking to as human beings. So for instance, what keeps them up at night? What wakes them up at 3 o'clock in the morning? What do they wake up going, oh, if only I could X? What are those things? And we really take some time, and we have a process that we go through, a facilitated process that we go through to really map out the psychological status quo, the practical status quo that of our clients, of the people that you are talking to, the people that you want to work with. And really we focus on your ideal clients here. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What is going on for them? You know, what do they believe that isn't right? And we spend some time mapping out the status quo. Once we've done that bit, we can then have to move over to where do we want them to be at the end of the conversation. And we will look at a variety of things, but some of those things will include, what intellectual shift do they need? So what are they thinking now, and what do they need to be thinking by the end? We will have a look at what are they feeling now. So what are they feeling now? What do we want them feeling at the end? We'll look at things like identity. Who do they think they are at the beginning of the talk versus who do we want them to think about being by the end of the talk? They may be able to be there, or they may need some facilitated help to get there. But what's the identity shift from before and after? And then we'll do things like look at what's the friction. So even if they believed all these amazing things, what's the friction that's going to stop them from moving? And we go through this process. And what our clients realise by the end is that we've got basically a before, this is where they are now, this is the status quo. And we've got an after, a kind of nirvana. It's like, this would be the amazing place to land. And what you realise is your talk is the bridge between those two things. So once we've understood our audience, it enables us to build. And we build based on the blueprint. The talk blueprint. So again, it's a facilitated process. So we take everything we've just figured out from this particular audience, from all of your expertise, from all the conversations you've had with all your clients, from the transformations you've created for everybody you work with, and then we can take that, and through this facilitated process, we can create a talk. And what that means is your talk stops being a download. It stops being, this is what you need to know. If you want to avoid this, this is what you have to do. And it becomes a conversation because we've figured out how people feel and what they need and what they want. And we are able to build a talk that is memorable, that is sticky, that is referable, and that is actionable. And those are four of the main things that people don't get wrong. It's like, you're not trying to convert everybody in that audience, but you are trying to create some super fans, people who go out and go, she's amazing, right? So whatever you say has to be memorable, even if it's not directly applicable to that individual in the audience. It's got to be repeatable. So what are the things that you want people to go away thinking and saying? It's got to trigger some emotion in that audience. They've got to feel things. Nobody takes action if they don't feel stuff. Right, we don't take action on things we don't care about, so we have to generate emotion in people. whether that's laughter, whether that's a bit of sadness, whether a bit of reflection, a bit of like, oh crap, we really can't stay here, whatever that might be. We have to encourage and help our audience to recognize where they are and feel some emotion for it and feel excited about the potential for the future. And most importantly, and I see this go wrong in so many talks, we need to give them a clear path. What do they need to do after we finish speaking? How do we make sure that that talk lives on beyond the moment that you stop talking? Because that is incredibly powerful. Because if your talk finishes and then they move on to another talk, or they go on to networking, or they leave and they go home, how do you make sure that the next time they're doing something related to what you're offering, they go, oh yeah, what did Emma say? Emma was talking about this. And it triggers something in them to rethink what they were doing, or you come top of mind again, or like I say, they refer you to a friend who's just said, oh, I've just had, sorry, I'm tacking my own desk. This thing's just happened and I don't know what to do about it. And you're like, well, you should definitely go and speak to Emma because she was just talking about this the other day. So it needs to live on. So it's got to be sticky, it's got to be memorable, it's got to help them feel, clear course of action. And the facilitated process makes sure that we build something that is interesting for your listeners, watchers to listen to. It keeps them engaged, it keeps them listening, it's memorable, it's sticky, it's referable. So, but it's based on the truth of where people are. It's not based on, oh, I need to tell them these things, right? This feels like a conversation. The other feels like a download. Here's what you should do. And actually what that does is create distance between you and your audience. When we use the blueprint, it actually brings you two closer together, which is exactly what we want. We want to create that connection between you and the audience, that sense that you get them, you see them, you've been there before, and you know how to help them, or you know how they can help themselves. So, understand, build. First two sections, absolutely critical. The next section is design. And this is where we do deck design. Most people use their deck as a crutch. So it's there as a way for them to remember what they need to say. It's there as a kind of script for some people, so they know exactly what to say. Some people have got notes underneath, they read what they're going to say. The deck is there. The deck almost becomes the presentation for many people, right? It's the most important bit, and it has to be just right. And so there's a lot of perfecting of decks that go on. There's a lot of adding into slide decks. There's a lot of bloat that happens when people start to write, especially if you're somebody who goes, okay, I need to give this talk, this is the title, and then you sit down and you start writing, and suddenly it's like, oh, I'll just tell them about this case study, I'll just add in that data, I'll just, and suddenly you've got 300 slides and 3.5 minutes to talk. It's like, best will in the world, that isn't gonna work, it's not gonna land. And so that really is going to feel like a download for your audience. So we really want to try and avoid that wherever possible. So the deck design is absolutely critical. It is there to support your audience in remembering your content. That's all. It's there to support your audience in remembering your content. That's all. So if there's something complex, or you need them to see some kind of diagram that explains something, or you need an image to show something, that's really what it's there for. But I will often see massively overcrowded slides. It's more like a book when we want to be thinking billboard. A huge over-reliance on bullet points, poor use of contrast, poor use of titling, poor use of imagery. So there's a lot of things that can really go wrong, and then the deck becomes the presentation and you are merely kind of the sidekick, the cameo. So we want to try and avoid that where possible. So we have two processes here. You can either go away and design your slides, then you send them back to me, and then I go through a process of detoxing them is probably a best way of saying it. So helping you make them even more powerful, even better, even more memorable and sticky for your audience. Or we work with 2 or 3 incredible presentation designers. So if you have the budget, then we really recommend that you work with them to help them produce the most powerful deck you possibly can. But what's really amazing is actually The production of the deck from the blueprint is really simple, because we know exactly what we need to kind of be highlighting to our audience as we're talking. So you should come out with a reasonable amount of slides for your talk that is going to support your talk and is going to help your audience remember, but isn't going to be your crutch and isn't going to get in the way of you really connecting and being credible with your audience. So, third stage is design. Next stage is rehearse. Now, what I've seen over the 20 years of me doing this work is people fall into two camps here. So we get the, I don't really rehearse group, and maybe you'll do it once or twice, and that's a kind of like, got your deck, kind of mumble through your slides. Or we've got the, I'm going to do 30 to 50 rehearsals for a 10-minute presentation, and so I know it inside out, literally inside out. So we get those two scenarios. And what that means is that when you get up on stage and there's a little bit more pressure, particularly if it's a bigger audience or it's a slightly higher stakes conversation, even if you would regard yourself as a confident speaker, as somebody who's done this quite a lot, then this lack of rehearsal will start to show up on stage. You won't quite connect with the audience in the right way. You're not going to be gesturing in a way that's going to be really supportive to your content. We'll find what we see is repetitive gestures coming in, because you're sort of, your body kind of takes over and it does things without the conscious mind going, yeah, that's a really good idea. So we see that. We see body language getting a little bit smaller. We see subtle changes in your voice, which indicate that sort of like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit, not quite sure what's coming next. So it can be really subtle. If you're a confident, competent speaker, and that's most of the people that we work with, it's going to come out in a really subtle way because you haven't rehearsed. On the other side, what we see is with people who've done the 30 rehearsals and know it inside out, it's almost, and I've had clients say this to me, is, geez, I'm bored with hearing my own voice. I am sick to death of this thing. And so what we get is we get a flattened performance. Everything just kind of is like da 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 da, and I'm just going to get through this bit because I've just said it 50,000 times and da 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 da, and it becomes unalive, inorganic. And it's, once you begin, you're on the train track and then you just keep going. And it's like, I've started at slide 1 and I now can't stop and I can't get off the train until I get to the station, which is my last slide. And it's just a kind of railroad. And that will absolutely feel uninspiring to your audience, and it'll also feel uninspiring to you. It diminishes the connection that's possible between the two of you. It also reduces agility. So you can't step off the tracks. You can't go over here because somebody has said something or asked something, or you can see something's going on in the audience. I was talking yesterday about the attention triangle, and in that scenario, all of the attention is on you and on your message, and none of your attention is on your audience, right? So if this sounds like you, go and watch the attention triangle, which I did yesterday, I think it was. So the rehearsal piece. When we work with clients, we have sessions where we will rehearse. Now, this is not about making you a cookie cutter speaker. This is not about making you sound like everybody else. This is not about you performing in a particular way. Absolutely not. This is about taking who you are as an individual. This is about taking your message. This is about taking that particular audience, the size of the room, what is going on around, and trying to make something that matches up so it's congruent. That's the most important thing, is your message, your personality, and your energy that you bring to that room. Is it all cohesive? Because if it is, it's going to land as a good message to your audience, even if they're not ready for it, even if they don't want it, even if they're never going to need you, right? It will make sense to them, which is what makes you referable, which is what makes you memorable, etc., etc. If any one of those things is off, it's going to feel clunky. It's going to be like a mixed message, and they won't know which bit to listen to or watch. So we need to make sure that the body, the breath, the voice, the message, the energy that you bring, all of that makes sense together, right? I will often say to people, imagine an advert. So Nike is a good one because we've all seen the Nike adverts. You've got the athlete on the side of the track. They're in their fancy running outfits. They've got their fancy shoes on. They're getting ready. You see them prepping. You see them visioning the end of the race, blah, blah, blah. And then you've got some kind of like folksy, bluegrassy music going on. It's like, it doesn't work because you're like, it doesn't make sense, right? We need something inspiring, something energetic, something kind of like, oh, something good is going to happen here. So just in the same way, when you're speaking, there has to be coherence. You've got to have the message, the energy, your voice, your body, your breath, the way you tell stories, the energy you bring, all of that has got to match up together, which is exactly what we do during the rehearse phase. We make sure that you are yourself, your authentic self, but just a bit shinier. Now, for some people, that's 10% shinier. For other people, that's 25, 30, 40, 50% shinier, depending on your personality, the size of the room, and the stakes that are, excuse me, choking on my own saliva, the size of the room and the stakes that are at play. So the rehearsal stage is absolutely critical. Now, the next stage is the prepare stage, because obviously, unless you want to pay for the VIP version, I'm unlikely to be standing on the stage beside you. But by this stage of the process, I know you really well. I know what makes you tick. I know how you think. I know what your inner critic is likely to say. I know what the impact of the speech is that you want. So what happens here is I will prepare you a personalised preparation routine. So what are you going to do for the 5, 10, 15 days before your speaking event? What are you going to do the night before? What are you going to do the morning of? What do you do standing on the side of the stage? Now, the reason that we do that is so that when you step onto the stage, your body and your mind are as prepared. Did I do body and mind? I did, didn't I? Your body and your mind are as prepared as you possibly can be. Which means the second you stand from your chair, the second you step onto that stage, the second the lights come on, the second that you go live, you are alive. You are very present to your audience. You are available to them. You're available to your message. You're available to yourself. And you are able to respond in the moment. Not that sort of gentle kind of coming up to the boil, which we will often see with speakers. 2 minutes in, they're into their stride. But the first 2 minutes were a little bit clunky, a little bit awkward, not quite working. And it's a bit like a dimmer switch. Yeah, it sort of slowly comes up to the full brightness. And actually what we need is full brightness the second somebody begins to speak. So that preparation routine, that allows for that to happen. If you haven't got that preparation routine, it doesn't matter how good the rehearsals were, because a lot can happen between the last rehearsal and the moment of stepping on the stage. Namely, inner critic comes out to play. Maybe there's tech issues. I literally cannot tell you the number of conference stages I've gone to, got out there and suddenly the tech's not working. Worked perfectly in rehearsals and suddenly the slides aren't moving on, or the microphone's not working, or the lights have gone funny, or there's a fire alarm. I literally, you name it, it has happened. Right? So a huge amount can happen between there and there. But if you're mentally prepared, if you know that those things are a possibility and you've done everything you can to check for those things and you've got a contingency plan, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you will be fine whatever happens because you've thought about it and we've prepared for it. So I said earlier that people only tend to do two sections of the 5 sections. So essentially, they do a little bit of this. So they build out the talk. They do a huge amount of design. And they tend to do a little bit of rehearsal, but not much. And I would say about 70 to 80% of the energy is spent here. Yeah, designing the deck. Maybe 20% of the energy is here, building the talk, and maybe 10% of the energy is here rehearsing the talk. For me, the 2 critical bits here are actually this bit and this bit. but they can't happen without that bit. Right? If you're not going to do any of these other things, I would 100% encourage you to think and put some more energy behind what needs to be spoken about, what's really going on here. I would 100% say spend more time rehearsing. The delivery bit is as important as what you're going to say. And spend a shit ton of less time on the deck, because it doesn't matter. It's probably distracting your audience from the conversation, which is you, which is your expertise, which is your understanding of who they are. Right? This so much less important. This and this absolutely critical. But none of that really works. Oh, my pen's running out. Shout out to Rachel Warner there. None of that really works unless you understand who your audience really is, what's really going on for them. Which is why we built out, as I said, the authority talk. We take our clients through this process so that they really understand their audience, like really like on a granular level, that we help build out that blueprint so the talk is a conversation, even though you're the one doing most of the talking. We help them design something that isn't going to detract from them as the speaker or their message, but is going to support that and make their content more memorable. We help them rehearse in a meaningful way, so they're rehearsing the right things, not practicing the wrong things. Right? We call it purposeful practice. We're trying to do the things that are going to improve your connection, increase your credibility with your audience, not decrease them. So that is absolutely critical. And then we help you prepare mentally and physically so that when you step onto that stage, however big or small that stage is, you are ready to go. Right? You're ready to connect with your audience from the first second that they see you, not from 2 minutes in. So this is how we work with clients. We have two spaces. So we have got a space for June and we've got a space for July. So if you are somebody who has been considering and thinking and waiting to create their authority talk, I would deeply encourage you not to wait any longer. Right? Talks can and should be constantly iterated, and it becomes easy when you have a process to follow. It's really hard work when you're starting from scratch every single time, or you're pulling in slides from other conversations and sort of trying to cobble together a talk. When you have this process, and I have clients who come back to me and go, okay, I need to do this thing, I need to talk to this audience now. And sometimes what we've discovered is we can just change the wrapping. The meat stays the same, but we change the wrapping, we change some of the language, we change some of the ideas, but the sort of core bits don't change. Or you've got the process that you can do it yourself. I have clients who iterate their talks continually, and they should be, because your relationship with the audience, with the content, with your expertise, it's going to change all the time. The world is changing all the time. So it should be iterating, but you have the process, you know the way to follow. So, as I said, we have two spaces, one in June, one in July. If you are somebody who's been waiting to do this, waiting to get out there, waiting to generate revenue with your talk, I would really encourage you to come and have a conversation with me now as opposed to in the future, because it will take us approximately 2 months. We have done it in short amounts of time. We've done it in 2 weeks, which is pretty bloody amazing. Generally, with everybody's workloads, it takes about 2 months to get this just right. So if we start now, we'll finish finish in July, maybe beginning of August, which means you are then ready to get out there in September on those conference stages in September, October, November, and start delivering this talk. If you don't start until September or October this year, 2 months on, we're into kind of mid to late November, which means this year's gone. There are no conferences in December, pretty much. Maybe some networking, but nothing significant, which means you will not get onto stages. You're not going to get speaking gigs until January 2027, which means your talk the whole point of building your revenue, building your business through speaking on stages cannot start until September. So if you are even remotely thinking about it, if you are ready to do this, then I would really encourage you to have a conversation with me about it, because we're running out of time for this year. I know that sounds really mad, doesn't it? And I feel really icky kind of saying it, but it is actually true. So DM me, let's have a conversation. If you're ready to do that talk, let's get your authority talk out there so that you are positioning yourself as an authority in your space, and your talk is working as hard as you do to generate income in your business. So I hope that was useful. I hope you can see why we do what we do. I hope that you can see how valuable this whole process is, and to be supported through the process as well, and have my input. I mean, I've literally at this point seen thousands and thousands and thousands of presentations, so I know what works, what doesn't work. I've seen it all before in all kinds of industries. So DM me, let's have a conversation. I'm going to leave you there. Have a fantastic rest of the day, a brilliant weekend, and I will see you live on LinkedIn next week. Bye for now.